The first thing Elena Brooks remembered about that night was the smell of antiseptic mixed with rain-soaked air drifting through the cracked hospital window. The storm outside had been relentless, thunder rolling across the sky like a warning she did not yet understand. She lay on the narrow bed in Harborview Medical Center, her hands trembling against her swollen stomach as a nurse leaned over her and said gently, "You're doing great, Elena. Just breathe." Elena tried to breathe, but her chest felt tight, like something heavy was already pressing down on her heart. Her husband, Daniel, stood by her side, his fingers wrapped around hers, whispering, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." When their daughter was finally born, the room filled with a brief, fragile cry that sounded more like a question than a promise. Elena's face broke into a smile, tears streaming down her cheeks as she reached out. "Let me see her," she whispered. But the doctor's expression shifted, and the nurse quickly turned away, carrying the baby toward the warmer. "We just need to run some tests," the doctor said, his voice too calm, too practiced. Minutes passed. Then more. Elena's smile faded into confusion. "Daniel," she murmured, squeezing his hand harder. "Why won't they bring her back?" The doctor returned alone. He cleared his throat. "Mrs. Brooks, your baby has a rare genetic condition. Her lungs aren't functioning properly." Elena sat up despite the pain. "I don't care," she said. "I just want to hold her." But instead of bringing her daughter, the nurse placed a clipboard in her hands. "We need you to sign these," she said softly. Elena stared at the papers, the words blurring as thunder cracked outside, and somewhere deep inside her, a quiet fear began to grow. They told Elena Brooks her daughter, Lila, had passed away before dawn. The words fell into the room like cold ash, settling on everything Elena thought she knew about the world. She did not scream. She did not cry. She simply stared at the wall across from her bed, where a small crack in the paint looked like a broken road leading nowhere. "I want to see her," Elena finally said, her voice barely louder than a breath. The nurse standing near the door, Mara Collins, shook her head gently. "It's better if you remember her peacefully," she said. Daniel stepped forward. "That's our child," he said, his voice tight. "We have a right." The doctor avoided their eyes. "The body has already been transferred for medical handling due to the condition," he explained. Elena felt something inside her collapse. "So that's it," she whispered. "She's just gone?" No one answered. Later, they handed her an urn and a folded brochure for a funeral home. The service was small, quiet, and painfully empty. The tiny white coffin at the front of the room felt like a cruel joke, a symbol of something that was never really there. Daniel sat beside her, his hand hovering near hers, unsure if he should touch her or give her space. At home, the silence became unbearable. The baby's room remained untouched, the pink blanket folded neatly in the crib. Weeks turned into months, and Elena drifted through her days like a ghost. Daniel tried to reach her. "Talk to me," he begged one night. "Please." But Elena only shook her head. "There's nothing left to say," she replied. Eventually, Daniel left, and Elena did not stop him. Grief had built walls too high for either of them to climb. 7 years later, Elena Brooks lived in a small apartment above a quiet bakery, where the smell of fresh bread every morning reminded her of a life she no longer felt part of. She worked at a local library, shelving books and answering simple questions with polite, distant smiles. Her co-workers knew her as kind but reserved, a woman who never spoke about her past. One rainy afternoon, her phone rang while she was organizing a row of children's storybooks. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello," she answered. There was a pause on the other end. "Mrs. Brooks," a man said carefully, "this is Dr. Samuel Wright from Harborview Medical Center." Elena's heart skipped. "Why are you calling me?" she asked, her voice already tightening. Another pause. "We've reopened some old neonatal records," he said. "There has been a serious discovery." Elena leaned against the shelf. "Just say it," she whispered. "Your daughter, Lila," he continued, "may not have died." The world tilted. Elena laughed once, sharp and broken. "That's not funny," she said. "This isn't a joke." "I assure you it isn't," Dr. Wright replied. We believe there was a falsification of records. A staff member, Nurse Vivian Hale, is under investigation. Elena's hand slipped from the shelf, books tumbling to the floor. A co-worker rushed over. "Are you okay?" she asked. Elena could only shake her head. "She's alive," Elena whispered, not sure if she was speaking to the woman or to herself. That night, she sat alone in her apartment, staring at the old pink blanket she had never thrown away. Hope crept in, slow and terrifying, like light breaking through a long-closed door. The next morning, Elena met Detective Marcus Reed in a small office filled with humming fluorescent lights and stacks of paper that looked as tired as he did. "I won't lie to you," he said, folding his hands on the desk. "This is bigger than we thought." He slid a tablet toward her, showing grainy security footage. Elena leaned in, her breath catching as she saw a nurse carrying a baby wrapped in a familiar pink blanket. "That's mine," Elena whispered. The nurse handed the baby to a tall man near the hospital's back entrance. "We believe this was part of an illegal adoption network," Marcus explained. "Your daughter was taken and placed with a family who thought everything was legal." "Where is she now?" Elena asked. "Canada," he replied. "The family is cooperating. We're arranging DNA tests." Elena pressed her hands to her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. "Do they love her?" she asked softly. Marcus nodded. "From what we can tell, yes. She's safe." A few days later, Elena received a photo. A young girl with bright eyes and a crooked smile stood in a sunlit yard, holding a teddy bear. Elena traced the screen with her finger. "That's her," she breathed. But something nagged at her. The bear's logo looked old. "That company closed years ago," she murmured. When she pointed it out to Marcus, his jaw tightened. "That means this photo may not be as recent as they claimed," he said. Elena felt the fear return, heavier than before. As the investigation deepened, Elena Brooks found herself pulled into a world she never imagined existed. Detective Reed showed her footage from other hospitals, other nights, other babies being carried away by the same shadowy woman who appeared briefly in Lila's case. "We called her the courier," Marcus said. "She shows up and a child disappears." Elena hugged herself. "Why us?" she asked. Marcus looked at her carefully. "Sometimes," he said, "it's just wrong place, wrong time." Elena's phone rang later that evening. A woman's voice spoke gently. "Mrs. Brooks, this is Rachel Monroe. I'm Lila's adoptive mother." Elena's heart pounded. "Is she okay?" she asked. "She's wonderful," Rachel said. "She's kind. She loves to draw and sing in the car." Elena closed her eyes, imagining it. "I never meant to hurt you," Rachel continued. "We were told her mother had given her up." Elena swallowed. "I never did," she whispered. The line fell quiet between them, heavy with shared pain. After the call, Elena sat by her window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. She realized that finding Lila was only the beginning. Somewhere out there was a network still operating, still taking children. And now, whether she was ready or not, Elena was part of the fight to stop it. Elena Brooks barely slept that night, her mind replaying Rachel Monroe's voice over and over, gentle yet heavy with a truth that changed everything. The next morning, she sat at her small kitchen table, staring at a cup of untouched tea as sunlight spilled across the worn wood. Her phone buzzed. It was Detective Marcus Reed. "We have the DNA results," he said. Elena's breath caught. "Don't say it if you're not sure," she whispered. There was a pause. "We're sure," Marcus replied. "Lila is your daughter." Elena pressed her hand against her mouth, a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob escaping her. "I knew it," she said, tears falling freely now. "I felt it." Marcus continued. "The Monroes are willing to meet you, but it needs to be slow. This is going to be hard for everyone, especially Lila." Elena nodded even though he couldn't see her. "I don't want to take her away from people who love her," she said. "I just want her to know I never stopped loving her." That afternoon, Elena pulled out an old box from under her bed. Inside were small memories, a hospital bracelet, a faded ultrasound photo, the pink blanket. She held the blanket to her chest and whispered, "I'm coming, my little star." the nickname she had given Lila before she was even born. The meeting took place in a quiet community center near the Canadian border, a neutral space chosen to make everyone feel safe. Elena arrived early, her hands shaking as she smoothed the front of her coat. When the door opened, Rachel Monroe stepped in first, her face pale but kind. Behind her walked a tall man, Ethan Monroe, and between them, a young girl with dark curls and curious eyes. Elena's heart nearly stopped. "That's her," she whispered to herself. Rachel knelt beside the girl. "Lila, sweetheart," she said softly. "This is Elena. She's someone very special." Lila tilted her head. "Special how?" she asked. Elena crouched down, her voice trembling. "I'm the one who brought you into the world," she said gently. Lila frowned, trying to understand. "Like my mom?" Elena's chest tightened. "Yes," she said. "Like your first mom." Silence hung in the room. Ethan cleared his throat. "We didn't know," he said quietly. "If we had." Elena shook her head. "This isn't your fault," she replied. Lila studied Elena's face for a long moment, then held up her teddy bear. "Do you like him?" she asked. Elena smiled through her tears. "I think he's wonderful," she said. It wasn't an embrace, not yet, but it was a beginning. In the weeks that followed, Elena and the Monroes worked carefully to build something fragile and new. They shared video calls where Lila showed Elena her drawings, her favorite songs, and the small garden in their backyard. Elena sent letters back, telling stories about the night Lila was born, about the stars she had watched from her hospital window, and how she had whispered promises into the dark. One evening, Marcus Reed visited Elena with a thick folder under his arm. "We've made arrests," he said. "Nurse Vivian Hale is in custody. So is the man from the footage. The courier is still out there, but this network is starting to fall apart." Elena exhaled slowly. "What about other families?" she asked. "We're reaching out to them," Marcus said. "Your case opened the door." Elena nodded, a quiet determination settling in her chest. She realized that her pain had become something else now, something stronger. It had become a reason to keep going, to make sure no one else sat in an empty nursery wondering what they had done wrong. One afternoon, Elena received a call from Daniel, the man she had once called her husband. His voice sounded older, tired. "I heard about Lila," he said. Elena hesitated. "Yes," she replied. "She's alive." There was a long silence. "I'm glad," Daniel finally said. "I didn't know how to live with what we lost." Elena closed her eyes. "Neither did I," she admitted. They talked for a while about the years that had passed, about the ways they had both broken in different directions. When the call ended, Elena felt lighter, as if another door she thought was locked forever had quietly opened. That night, she wrote Lila a letter she didn't plan to send, at least not yet. "You saved me," she wrote. "Just by being out there in the world, you gave me something to believe in again." The first time Lila visited Elena's apartment, it felt like inviting sunlight into a room that had been dark for years. Lila wandered around, touching the shelves, peeking out the window, asking endless questions. "Did you really keep my blanket all this time?" she asked, pointing to the pink fabric folded neatly on the couch. Elena nodded. "I didn't know why," she said. "I just couldn't let it go." Lila climbed onto the couch and wrapped the blanket around her shoulders like a cape. "I'm a hero," she declared. Elena laughed, the sound surprising even herself. Rachel and Ethan watched from the doorway, their faces soft with mixed emotions. Later, Rachel pulled Elena aside. "She talks about you at home now," she said. "She says she has two moms who love her." Elena swallowed. "That's the best thing I could ever hear," she replied. The trial made headlines, but Elena avoided the cameras and reporters. She didn't want her story to become a spectacle. She wanted it to be a lesson. Marcus Reed called her after the verdict. "They're going away for a long time," he said. Elena looked at Lila, who was coloring at the table. "Good," she said softly. "For every child who didn't get their story back." Marcus hesitated. "You changed things, Elena," he said. "More than you know." After the call, Elena sat beside Lila. "What are you drawing?" she asked. Lila held up the paper. It showed 3 figures holding hands under a big yellow sun. "That's me," Lila said, pointing, "and that's you, and that's Mom Rachel. And the sun is for everyone." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "It's perfect," she whispered. As months passed, a rhythm formed between 2 homes, 2 countries, and 1 little girl who belonged to both. Elena traveled often, sometimes just to sit in the Monroe's living room and watch Lila play. On one visit, Lila climbed into Elena's lap and asked, "Are you going to disappear?" Elena's heart clenched. "No," she said firmly. "I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." Lila nodded, satisfied, and leaned her head against Elena's chest. In that quiet moment, Elena felt the weight of 7 lost years settle gently into something she could finally carry without breaking. Elena began speaking at small community gatherings, telling her story not as a tragedy, but as a warning and a hope. "Ask questions," she told new parents. "Demand answers. Trust your instincts." People listened. Some cried. Some hugged her afterward, thanking her for her courage. Elena didn't feel brave. She felt grateful. Grateful that Lila was alive. Grateful that the truth had come out. Grateful that pain, somehow, had turned into purpose. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elena and Lila stood on a small hill near the bakery where Elena lived. The sky glowed pink and gold. "It looks like your blanket," Lila said. Elena smiled. "It does," she agreed. Lila took Elena's hand. "I'm glad you found me," she said simply. Elena squeezed her hand back. "I never stopped looking," she replied, her voice steady and full for the first time in years. Years later, when people asked Elena Brooks how she survived the worst day of her life, she would think of a little girl with a crooked smile and a teddy bear, of a phone call that shattered and rebuilt her world all at once, of the moment she realized that love could be stolen, hidden, and buried, but never truly destroyed. She would say, "I survived because hope survived." And somewhere, not too far away, Lila would be laughing, growing, becoming her own bright story in a world that once tried to take her away but failed. The fight had been long and frightening, but the ending was something Elena had learned to believe in again, a future written not in loss, but in love. Life did not suddenly become simple after the world stopped watching, and Elena Brooks learned that healing was not a straight line but a quiet circle she walked again and again. On a cool autumn morning, she stood in the bakery downstairs, waiting for a loaf of warm bread while Lila tugged at her sleeve. "Can I have the one with the seeds?" Lila asked, pointing at the glass case with bright certainty. Elena laughed softly. "You always know what you want," she said. The baker smiled at them, unaware of the long road that had brought them there. Later, as they walked back upstairs, Elena paused at the door to her apartment, suddenly nervous. "Are you okay being here today?" she asked. Lila nodded. "I like your place. It smells like stories," she said. Elena raised an eyebrow. "Stories?" Lila grinned. "Books and bread," she replied. Inside, Elena watched Lila curl up with a picture book on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her, the pink blanket resting over her shoulders. In that simple moment, Elena felt the past loosen its grip just a little more, as if every ordinary day they shared was quietly rewriting the painful ones they had lost. That evening, Marcus Reed called again, not as a detective this time, but as a friend who had stayed longer than he meant to. "I thought you should know," he said. "We found the courier." Elena froze. "Alive?" she asked. "Alive," Marcus confirmed. "She's talking." Elena closed her eyes, a wave of emotions rushing through her, relief tangled with sadness for all the families who might never get the same ending she did. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Marcus said, "we keep finding the truth, one story at a time." After the call, Elena sat beside Lila on the floor, helping her color a picture of a house with a big red door. "Why does it have such a big door?" Elena asked. Lila shrugged. "So everyone can come in," she said simply. Elena swallowed, touched by the quiet wisdom in the child's words. She realized that Lila didn't just represent what had been taken from her, but what the world still needed. Open doors, open hearts, and a chance to begin again. Winter brought snow and long evenings filled with soft music and shared meals. Rachel and Ethan visited often now, and the four of them began to feel less like separate families and more like pieces of a single, imperfect but loving whole. One night, as they sat around the table, Ethan raised his glass. "To strange beginnings," he said with a small smile. Rachel added, "And better endings." Elena hesitated, then lifted her own glass. "And to the in-between," she said. Lila giggled. "I don't have a glass," she said. Elena handed her a cup of juice. "That counts," she laughed. After dinner, Lila fell asleep on the couch, her head resting on Elena's shoulder. Rachel watched them quietly. "She's lucky," she said. Elena shook her head. "We all are," she replied. In that moment, Elena understood that love was not a limited thing you had to fight over. It was something that grew when it was shared, something that became stronger the more people held it together.